Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we have week 3 of our playoff power rankings, and with the second round now kicking off, we're down to the final 8. Which team is the top team going into the second round, and who do I have 1 through 8 in the power rankings now with no honorable mentions and no other teams? We'll touch on all of this coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now once again, before I begin this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, comment, tell all your friends. Best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the End-to-End Hockey channel, so if you can, leave a like, leave a comment, love to hear your thoughts on all that was discussed here today. And don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 750 subscribers in the very near future, and 90% of you guys who view my videos are not subscribed, so definitely stay tuned for that. Once again, if you haven't already, check out some of my live streams that will be coming up in the very near future. We have a live stream coming out later today talking about the draft lottery. That's going to be a very interesting one at around, I think it's 5 o'clock Mountain Time, so I hope you guys tune in for that. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're going to be doing a couple more live streams for some playoff games. Thursday, we're going to be streaming Carolina versus Philly, and Friday, we're going to be streaming Buffalo Montreal. So I hope you guys all tune in for those game streams later on in the week. But in today's video, we do have another power rankings video. This is going to be a little bit different from my last 2 ones where I had the top 8 teams and a couple of honorable mentions with the 16 team field, but now that the field's been cut in half to 8, we're just doing top 8 power rankings. So the 8 teams still standing are the 8 teams that are going to be in my power rankings, and I'm just going to rank them 8 through 1, and you guys are going to find out who I currently have as the top 3, top 5, and best team right now entering the second round. So the 8th team in my power rankings, the lowest team of the remaining 8 coming into the power rankings here for the start of the second round, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, no offense to them, they had a pretty good series. They wound up winning 4-2 over the Pittsburgh Penguins, got up to a 3-0 lead, let Pittsburgh crawl back into that game, but then wound up finding a way to get it done in Game 6, taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins 1-0 in overtime. So all in all, solid stuff there. They have a really solid defense, and Vladar's been pretty good, so their defense and their goaltending is great. It's a suffocating style of defense that a lot of teams are going to find very hard to play against. I do have some concerns about their offense. They didn't have a great amount of offensive production in that first round series, and that was against Pittsburgh. Now go up against Carolina. So I'm a little bit concerned about Philadelphia, which is why they stay here where they were last week at number 8 spot on the power rankings. They're still a pretty good team, and once again, I do think that they have the potential to upset Carolina, but after how that game 1 wound up going, I'm starting to think it's very, very unlikely that this team is going to wind up making it past round 2. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but Philadelphia has a pretty good defense. They had a pretty good first round series against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I liked what they were doing against the Penguins, but once again, that's Pittsburgh, not Carolina. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but once again, I think to start out round 2, I think starting here at number 8 for the Philadelphia Flyers is pretty deserved. Offensively, team's looking pretty decent with Zegras, with Martone, with Konechny. Defensively, not looking too shabby, with guys like York and Sanheim, and in net, Vladar still has been spectacular for the Philadelphia Flyers. So all in all, pretty solid stuff there from Philadelphia, but I do have some concerns about their offense. They had a little bit of a weaker opponent in Pittsburgh, so that's why they are going to start here at the 8th spot on the power rankings. 7th spot on the power rankings, taking their opponent they defeated spot from last week, as they are now eliminated, is the Vegas Golden Knights, who take the Utah Mammoth spot at the 7th spot in the power rankings. So Vegas, who I didn't even have in my honorable mentions last week, had a really solid week, wound up winning the last 3 games of the series to win the series 4-2 over the Utah Mammoth. A couple of really narrow overtime games followed up by a dominant Game 6 performance led by Mitch Marner of all people. So very interesting note that the Knights are looking pretty good. They're going up against the Anaheim Ducks. Once again, I liked what they did in round 1. They played a couple of pretty close games, got a couple of narrow overtime victories. Once again, I think they could have had another gear in that first round series, and that is why I'm going to only keep them here at the 7th spot of the power rankings. But I still like them. They're my favorite team, so I really do think this team could go far. I'm just a little bit concerned having to go up against a lot more of a quicker team than Anaheim, and Utah's speed gave them problems. So I'm going to keep them here at the 7th spot on the power rankings, but I mean, they were able to put some pretty good point totals, goal scoring totals against Utah. Defensively, wasn't fantastic in that first round series, but they have some pretty good stuff that I think they can build off of. So all in all, Vegas is a pretty solid team. They're a well-rounded team. They took out a pretty dang good opponent, in my opinion, the Utah Mammoth, who I had going to the conference final. And because of all of that, I'm going to put them here to start the second round at the 7th spot in the power rankings. Offensively, team's looking pretty good with Eichel, with Howden, with Marner. Defensively, not looking too shabby with guys like Anderson and Theodore. And in net, Carter Hart has been brilliant for the Vegas Golden Knights. So on all stuff there from Vegas. But they're going to start the power rankings at the 7th spot in the power rankings, 6th spot in the power rankings. And bumping up from the honorable mention spot last week, taking out one of the teams who got eliminated spot, is the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres, I think, had a pretty decent first round series. I didn't like all of what they played against the Boston Bruins, and once again, Boston does have a fantastic goaltender in Jeremy Swayman. So once again, no offense to the Boston Bruins, but I just don't think they had a whole bunch of talent on their team. So I'm a little bit concerned with Buffalo, given how much of a problem the Boston Bruins gave the Buffalo Sabres. All in all, Buffalo's still a pretty solid team. They won the Atlantic Division. They had a pretty solid first round series. They won all 3 games on the road, which is absolutely surprising, especially having to play in TD Garden. So Buffalo had some good aspects to their game, and that is why I'm bumping them up here to the 6th spot in the power rankings. But there's still a few flaws in their game that I think could potentially cost them this series against the Montreal Canadiens. So I think to start out the second round, a 6th spot in the power rankings is pretty dang good for the Buffalo Sabres. Offensively, team's looking pretty good with guys like Thompson and Krebs and Benson. Defensively, not too shabby with guys like Dahlin and Byram, and in net, Alex Lyon, since coming in to the starting crease for the Buffalo Sabres, has been phenomenal. So all solid stuff there from Buffalo, but they are the 16th in the power rankings, 15th in the power rankings. Also bumping up from the honorable mention spot last week and taking one of the eliminated team spots is the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks had a pretty dang good first round. Not a lot of people, including myself, thought this team was actually going to be able to get past round 1, but they were able to take down a battered and bruised Edmonton Oilers team. They wound up winning all 3 games on home ice, which is fantastic, and they can score like the best of them. They have offense from absolutely everywhere, and that is scary. Defense could definitely use a little bit of work going into the series against the Vegas Golden Knights, but all in all, Anaheim's fun, they're exciting, they're young, they're quick, and I would not be one bit surprised personally if they were able to make it to the conference final. So after a couple of weeks not being in the power rankings and honorable mentions, I think bumping them up here to a 5th spot in the power rankings is deserved after taking down the back-to-back Stanley Cup finalists in the Edmonton Oilers. So I think 5th spot here in the power rankings is pretty deserved for Anaheim. Offensively, team's looking pretty good with guys like Carlson and Terry and Gauthier. Defensively, not too shabby with guys like Trouba and Lacombe, and in net, Dostal, well, he could be a little bit better, has still been pretty good for the Anaheim Ducks. So that's what I have at the 5th spot in the power rankings. 4th spot in the power rankings, bumping up 1 spot from last week, mostly due to the fact that there were a couple of teams ahead of them that got eliminated, is the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche, I do still think, have a couple of problems, especially that was shown in that Los Angeles series. They didn't inspire much confidence in me, plus I still do believe fully in the President's Trophy curse, but they swept the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings didn't give them much of a problem. That first game against the Minnesota Wild, though, I know that the Avalanche won it, but I could still see the Minnesota Wild doing damage. I mean, they scored more goals than Los Angeles did in that entire first round series in 1 game. So yeah, I do think Colorado has the potential and the team to potentially go to the conference final, although I don't think with the curse they probably will. But I think going up to the 4th spot here, especially after sweeping that first round series, is deserved. So I'm going to keep them here at the 4th spot in the power rankings to start round 2. Offensively, team's looking great with guys like Kadri, McKinnon, and O'Connor. Defensively, not too shabby with guys like Makar and Taze, and in net, once again, he hasn't been the greatest of goaltenders, but Wedgwood has been pretty dang good for the Colorado Avalanche in net. So on all solid stuff there from the Avalanche, but they get bumped up here 4th spot in the power rankings. And then 3, 2, 1 are the same exact 3 teams as it was in last week's power rankings. So at the 3rd spot in the power rankings, staying there from last week, we had the Carolina Hurricanes. Once again, I think they had a really solid first game against the Philadelphia Flyers, beating them 3-0 after sweeping the Ottawa Senators. They have not trailed once entering the game 2 against the Philadelphia Flyers in the postseasons. So the Carolina Hurricanes have gone 5 games and they've not trailed once. So the Carolina Hurricanes are in a pretty dang good position right now. I don't know how Philadelphia is going to win a couple of games like I thought they probably would. So Carolina's looking really good. I think staying here at the 3rd spot on the power rankings is deserved. They're looking like a really lethal team. I think they could wind up making short work of that Philadelphia Flyers team. So especially after the dominant first round they had against Ottawa, I think keeping them here at the 3rd spot on the power ranking is deserved. Offensively, team's looking great with Stankoven, Hall, and Aho. Defensively, not looking too shabby with guys like Slavin and Chatfield, and in net, Anderson has been dominant for the Carolina Hurricanes, so that's why they are going to stay here at the 3rd spot in the power rankings. 2nd spot in the power rankings, staying there from last week, we had the Montreal Canadiens, who just ever so slightly were able to edge out Tampa Bay in round 1 to face the Buffalo Sabres in round 2. So what a really great series that one was against Tampa. It was close. There were 7 one-goal games, not even empty netters could have made 2-goal games. 7 one-goal games, including 4 overtime games, and the Habs never trailed in that series. They were up 1-0, they were up 2-1 in that series, they were up 3-2 in that series, and they won it in 7. So all in all, Montreal, they're looking really good. Once again, I do think Buffalo has a really good chance against Montreal, but I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Montreal is able to get by them and get to the conference final. Like, Montreal is a team who's looking really, really scary. They have some really good young pieces, they have some decent vets, and they just took out a Tampa Bay Lightning team that was looking like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference over a good portion of the year. So I think keeping them at the 2nd spot in the power rankings is pretty deserved here. For the Montreal Canadiens, offensively, team's looking pretty good with guys like Doc, Bolduc, and Newhook. Defensively, not looking too shabby with guys like Hudson and Dobson, who's now back, and in net, Dobesh. He was brilliant in that 1st round series. So all in all, solid stuff there from the Montreal Canadiens. That's why they stay 2nd. And staying at the top spot in the power rankings despite losing game 1 in round 2, and that is the Minnesota Wild. The Wild were able to, in arguably one of the best 1st round series, take down the Dallas Stars in 6 games for 2. Exact opposite of what happened, I think it was 3 years ago, when the Dallas Stars beat the Minnesota Wild in 6 games in round 1, 4-2. So once again, this was a series that a lot of people were expecting to go 6 or 7 games. Minnesota, they were looking dominant, they were hard-hitting, they completely battered up that Dallas Stars team. 5-on-5, they destroyed the Dallas Stars, and they looked like a really good team. They're still like cup favorites, so that is why I'm keeping them here at the 1st spot in the power rankings. Now, they do have some things to work on. They gave up 9 goals in game 1 against the Colorado Avalanche, so yeah, you got some work to do to try and tighten up some things defensively, because Colorado is definitely a different beast than the Dallas Stars are. But once again, they put up 6 goals on the Colorado Avalanche, which most nights will probably get you the wins. So once again, I do think things will tighten up, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Wild were able to rattle off 3 or 4 the next 5 or 6 games and make this a very interesting series. So once again, we'll have to wait and see on that, but I do still think the Wild are a very lethal team. They're a team to be feared, and even though they're down 1-0 in their series to the Colorado Avalanche, I'm going to keep them here at the top spot in the power rankings for this week. Offensively, team's looking pretty dang good with guys like Kaprizov, Boldy, and Tarasenko. Defensively, not too shabby with guys like Hughes and Faber. And in net, Wallstead, even though he had a really bad game 1 against the Colorado Avalanche, was great in that 1st round series. So all in all, I think the Wild, at this point in time at least, stay the top spot in the power rankings. So in my opinion, those are my top 8 teams entering round 2 for the power rankings. Once again, just to recap, the top 8 teams in my power rankings are 8, Philadelphia, 7, Vegas, 6, Buffalo, 5, Anaheim, 4 is Colorado, 3 is Carolina, 2 is Montreal, and number 1 team in the power rankings is still the Minnesota Wild, but that could change by the time we do next week's power rankings, definitely. I'll tell you guys' thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. Heading into the start of the 2nd round, who would be your top 8 teams? How would you rank them 1 through 8? Love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Once again, if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. Leave a subscribe, tell all your friends. Best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the Edmonton and Hockey channel. Once again, if you haven't already, check out my live streams coming out over the next couple of days. A live stream later today at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, doing a draft lottery live stream, so I hope you guys tune in for that. And then on Thursday and Friday, we'll be having some live streams for some game action, so I hope you guys tune in for those too. If you guys really want to support the channel, go to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I'll leave a link to it in the description below and leave a donation. It really does help with the channel and really supports the channel. On top of that, I also do a blog, tournament news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so you can check that out. I'll link to that down in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.